everyone, welcome back. This is the usual stream for writing a programming language in Rust, and this is potentially going to be one of the last streams to do with this research language that I've been working on called Seed, where the purpose of Seed has been to focus on playing around with different programming language ideas, but mostly to act as a test bed for and basis for other more, novel programming languages that I will be building on top. And just flipping windows around here. The bulk of the language is basically complete at this point, and so today what I was wanting to do is maybe start wrapping up some of the last little bits of housekeeping, maybe one or two little features, but mostly just a bit of refactoring and tidying up, and maybe bumping the version of Rust that's being used, because I haven't updated that in a while now. It's not the most important thing for language like this at the moment, but these kind of things can be handy to do as well. Now I'm just thinking, it's been a while since I've been streaming actually, so I'm just making sure that all my different bits are in place. And just a quick introduction to the environment that I'm using as usual. So it's the usual one where I'm working on a remote environment that I'm using Mosh to create a stable connection to. I use Tmux to split up the session and create these different panes. I have plain Vim with nerdtree up in the top left here. I use ENTR to rebuild the project and run all the tests whenever a change happens in one of the source files. And then in the bottom left, I just have a bash instance for running commands, usually for interfacing with Git for the most part. So where are we at the moment? If I recall correctly, the semicolons branch that I'm currently on is basically finished. All the tests were run, and it's really just a matter of merging that into the main line now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out main, and I'm going to do a merge with no fast forwarding. So it's going to keep the branch there, and it's also going to have, it's not going to perform a commit. And so maybe what I'll do just before that actually is one of the housekeeping bits I wanted to do today was to rename the semicolon token to be named end statement, because the semicolon is still being used as, so basically the functionality of the Lexer at the moment is that it will actually insert semicolons. So it's still a semicolon based language. So if we look at the parser for it, for example, we can actually see that every expression and every statement rather ends with a semicolon. And now that I look at it, I could possibly replace all of those tokens with a single rule. So I could, let's see, I will make that big, and I could potentially replace that with, let's see, do I have raw expression as well? I think I do somewhere, raw expression, yeah. So raw expression is the kind of lower level bit. Yeah, and so I'll have raw statement as well. And every statement must end with a semicolon. And that will potentially simplify things a bit more even. And so the rule is that the lexer actually, so semicolons are still in theory required by the language to terminate statements, but the lexer actually inserts the semicolons automatically, particularly on the basis of new lines. So more or less whenever a new line is encountered. Now this rebuild is going to be taking a while because we're modifying the lexer, and as we have seen in previous streams, that can take a bit of time. But the lexer, as I said, inserts semicolons automatically, but then has certain rules for when it will elide them or when it will skip returning a semicolon in the case of a new line. And that's usually if it follows, and actually we can take a look at the rules. Because these are possibly some of the only places that semicolons are output at this point. And in fact, we should possibly add some tests for those as well to make sure that the semicolons are output at the correct time. Let me see. Raw statement. But basically, we have a rule here for, no, it's down here. No, it is here, I guess. So, hang on, where is our rule for semicolons? It basically says that, yeah, if current character is new line, then we return here. And what happens then? Skip white space and comments. Okay, and if it's a semicolon, then we do return a semicolon. We just have it so that you can actually have multiple statements on one line, even if it's not best practice. But then if we also encounter a new line, then we will emit a semicolon. However, this is essentially a this isn't the driver function, this is driver method. This is the method that gets called if, and that simplification works, so we can actually keep that around. But essentially we have rules for when we're going to omit the semicolon. And so we say that if the last colon, or if the last token was any of these and we encounter a new line, in any of these cases, then we don't output a semicolon. And so those would be if the line ends with an operator. So a lot of these are borrowed from Go. If the line ends with an operator, if a line ends with a comma, all of those kind of situations, if it ends with an equals, then we omit the semicolon. And actually that's a pretty, at least based on the test so far, that's a pretty robust rule that just if you encounter a new line, if the last token was any of these, then If it wasn't any of those, then output a semicolon. And that's our kind of rule there. However, I was thinking that it could be nice to rename that token to the statement end token. And so let's take a look at what that might look like. So some tests will probably need to be updated because of this, but I think that in general that would be a more, I guess, fitting description for that token at this point. That might be all that's needed. Let's try that. That might help make it feel like less of a hack as well, because it's actually named appropriately and we're not kind of overloading the meaning of the semicolon token. I don't really feel like adding more tests for this right now because there are other things that I want to get to, but I can always come back and add some more tests at the end of the stream if there's a bit of time left. Is that done? All the bits passed? Is that being run by a just file? Yeah, it's doing just check though. Usually just when it's running commands, it'll put the command in bold. So I'm kind of surprised that that's not happening, but it is fine. It's probably something to do with the way I've configured the environment, but I've actually actually updated docs, so I wonder if I will still need to handle cargo term color, for example. So if I do that without cargo term color, no, it's still that probably hasn't stopped it, but let's see. Oh, that's a bit surprising to me, and a bit, I don't know, I wished that I didn't have to configure that still. Am I mounting the local user group and project directory? Yeah. Oh well, I'll try and debug that some other time, I guess. So what we'll do is just keep going where we were. We're currently on main, so we'll merge with no fast forward and no commit the omit semicolons branch, and the reason we're doing a no commit is that I haven't actually bumped the version in the branch itself. I do that when I'm merging, because if something else merges in the meantime, you know, you could have two branches, and if you bump the versions in the branch, then you could have them both bumping to the same version or not actually appreciating or honoring each other's changes. So I try to only bump versions when I actually do a merge. I mean, it's only myself working on this at the moment anyway, so it's not such a big deal, but I do like to follow best practices when I can. So that's nice, we've merged the semicolons changes. So let's see what's next in our Scratch. So we renamed that. Next thing that I want to do is, let's try this first, reference, or maybe defining a custom result type. Maybe that'll come first. And I guess we'll define it with error. Is there a good way of, I mean, I feel like I could just do pub enum result, but let's see if there's a special way of defining Rust enums or Rust results, custom Rust results. Yeah, so it's really just an alias with just do it like that. Oh yeah, so it's needed to, let's see, how's the namespace result? And in fact, will I need to inline some of those lines because they're now shorter? looks a little funny. Not sure what's happening there. I think, yeah, that was just a case of my macro that I was using for the last couple of changes didn't account for that kind of type. Cool, and I think that's more or less it. Let's try rebuilding that. Oh, I didn't check the result. Yeah, that's all good. So I'll be good to actually commit that once all the changes pass again. So that will be create a custom result type. And just double check that all the Clippy errors are all right. Yeah, let's see. Oops. Git pushy. So then go back to the Scratch file. That's result done. And just for some housekeeping, I'll delete the semicolon branch that we already merged. Yeah, we have a bunch of leftover branches, but I don't think there's much on them. Like var args is implemented with the ... notation. Operator assignment has been fixed. I mean, it was a big change. I don't think it was contained in just one branch. Yeah, that's many versions ago. And that's pre-semicolons, so it's going to be difficult to actually see the meaningful changes. Yeah, I'll probably go through those later and just double check what ones, if there's any relevant code there, and just clean up. So now maybe we'll take a look at some features, or rather one feature which I was thinking about recently which could be nice, and as I'm always careful about saying it'll be easy to implement, but I do think it will be, because the functionality is basically implemented already. It's really just, oh, I forgot I don't have, I added a new shortcut which is just leader percent and leader double quotes, which will give a vertical split or a horizontal split based on the tmux shortcuts, but I've only added them to my vimrc recently, so what I'll actually have to do is go back into Vim, and now I will have that functionality. No, what have I done? Oh, so let's try that. Yeah, we have it again now. So in that case, let's take a look at its eval mod. And equality. And so we're essentially just taking these ref equal types, or ref equal calls, and isolating them, and saying that if we use the reference equality operator, then we can check just reference equality. We won't be checking structural equality. I'm just taking a look at the implementation of equality here, and if two objects have the same number of items but don't have the same items, this could panic potentially. So let's see. And there were a couple of other tests that I was kind of interested in as well. So one was, what would happen if we tried to assign a value to a keyword, and I think it would get rejected correctly, but I'm not sure what it would actually say. So that could be an interesting one. So let's see, say if we tried to define a new value called null. I think it would give a parse error. That's taking a while. I didn't think we updated the parser, but sometimes even just opening the file in Vim, at least that's my best guess, will touch a file sometime, will be enough to like update the, I don't know, some kind of metadata on the file. I've noticed it often enough that interesting. So I can't bind to null. And what if I say, for example, if? Yeah, so that's a parse error. But anyway, this is more or less what I want. I wanted to say you can't assign to this thing because, you know, that I believe has resulted in some gotchas in the likes of JavaScript over the years where you could redefine. I'm not sure if you could redefine null. I believe you could redefine undefined though, which wasn't so great either. So that's that. Let's see what happens if we try to do equality on objects with different keys. And we had standard out operations. Where is that? Object equality was fine, so that's good. Nothing to be done there right now, but we might do some recursive tests, which I notice are not present at the moment. So I'll just do nested lists. Oh, interesting. So oh, I was looking at the wrong one first of all for lists. So we're checking if the item actually exists in the other object. So that's actually fine. But list equality is somewhat broken, but not really, because this is almost like a polymorphic list. So if we were to actually make the lists, is it homogenic, not sure, but if we make them lists of lists rather than lists of lists or integers, then that might clear things up. Now that was the issue, but I think that the error that was getting output wasn't really helpful. It was saying lists can't be compared to a list, but we were comparing a list to an integer. Yeah, so that's line 2, as we would expect. But it's saying can't apply equals to list and list, which isn't what's happening. Oh, that's happening because it's the nested component is causing the exception, but it's the top level one that's actually, in fact, yeah, so there are actually nested errors being captured here, but it's only the top level one that's actually getting handled. So we possibly want to handle it in here to either replace the top level one or else in main we want to dig into the error. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which one we'll go for, but what we'll do for the moment is we'll actually remove that, and oh, why does it look like that? Oh, I don't like when this happens. I think I pressed Control B and space at some point, and so it's rearranged how it looks for me, but I can just do that, and now it's fine again. So we have that there. So we'll leave that for the moment. That'll be, again, something that I'll come back to. The main thing that I want to work on right now, though, is reference equality. And partly because that can allow for some neat functionality. In particular, I believe it'll be one of the main ways we can test for uniqueness. So if an object, we can check for singletons and things like that. Is this actually the object that we created for, or does it just look like it? And theory, yeah, it depends on the application. You can probably use both. Like, you possibly don't need reference equality, but in a strict Turing sense, in the sense that, all languages are functionally equivalent. You know, if you apply the idea of Turing completeness to all of them, but that doesn't mean that all are equal in terms of power and expressiveness. So I think it would be a useful feature to have. In theory, at least, I've thought of some applications, or at least some operations and maybe data structures and things that would be made simpler by use of reference equality, but actually I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. The main application I was thinking about recently is in terms of error handling. But again, you can achieve the same basic functionality with the likes of just, shall we say, the likes of strings, for example, because they're kind of global singletons in a way when you have two strings that are the same. But having unique objects and being able to check for uniqueness, I do think can be quite useful. So let's go ahead and go binary operation reference equals and reference not equals. Okay, so it's not fully hooked up just yet, but I'm going to maybe do the implementation documentation now because it might be easier than the Lexer bit. So we can have two lists, two objects, and possibly two functions being the same. Basically anything that's behind an arcmutex. I'd say Clippy will allow me to simplify that as well, potentially. But even that's kind of fine the way it is. Eval error. Oh yeah. A lot of duplications to do with tokens, unfortunately, but you know, it's not too bad either. So let's try that. Yeah, and we just need to do the last part of hooking up the Lexer so that it actually produces those new tokens. Everything else seems to be basically implemented now. And I might disable the failing test for the moment. I'll just put it in here as a, oh, let's see, I need to swap over to US. So let's just double check that we're doing the right thing here. Yeah, so it's basically the last thing we attempt to do when we're matching a symbol or a character in the character stream. And so what we'll do is, if we match one symbol, then we go forward. If we don't, though, now this could be tricky. The part where we match. Well, it's kind of alright because it basically, this is a last ditch effort to try and match the next thing in the stream, and if we don't match anything, then we'll say that we couldn't match anything. So it's kind of alright, but I don't really love the logic around this section. But however, we'll see, okay, we've checked for the next character, and we'll attempt to match a double symbol token. And if we do, this, if we're here, then we've matched a double symbol token. And so if we've matched two, then we'll attempt a third. And if there is nothing in the stream, then we just return what we have so far, which is T. In this case, I think we might even rejig this a little. match a single token, then we do this, we go on to the next character. Yeah, I don't really like the clobbering of T, but it doesn't really matter too much. So let's do it like that again. Wouldn't be my first preference, but it's fine. Now what we need to do next is handle our kind of else clause. So here we have, if we failed to match a single symbol token, then we'll go into this clause. Otherwise, if we matched a double symbol token, we'd have to call that multi-symbol token, because this is going to actually modify the stream, so we're not going to be able to easily pick back up after that. So we would have to return this, whatever that ends up being. It's kind of gonna look like this again, I think. Yeah, and the difference here is that when we match character 2, then we won't when we peak. Differences here is if the peak fails, then we return none, but if after we've done a match we return some T, which is the token that we've matched so far. And same for this, if it doesn't match, then we need to return the match so far. Or, sorry, we need to return none if there's no match there. And then we can do a more, I guess, tentative peak. So in this case, then if we do a peak character, so maybe I'll do this, I'll associate that with the match that happened before. So whenever we have a match, then we go on to the next character, and same here. So in all we can move forward 3 times, and here we've moved forward twice. If we go character 3 and match that, then we can go to the next, and then we return some. I'm just thinking, because there's such a pattern along here, such a repeat pattern, maybe it'd be cool to make a macro for that, but it really, I don't think it warrants that. It would be fun, I think, but I don't think that that really is a good use of time right now. So let's just double check the logic. Okay, yeah, so that's something that I'm missing as well. So there's a case that, so what this does is if we match one character and it makes up a single character token, then we can just return that if it doesn't match anything else. However, if we match a second one, it could match a double character token. So we return that, but if it doesn't, then we return the original token. However, it could match it could be the prefix of a three symbol token, but not a 2 symbol token. But it could, so for example, if we had something like this, and this isn't a token, but this is, then we could match number 1 or number 3, but not number 2, and so we need to account for all of those cases. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but we need to be able to match inside here as well for our triple symbol token. But I think that because of the way the language is structured, all of the triple symbol tokens have prefixes in the double symbol token set. So that should actually be fine. So I'm gonna skip that part, but put a comment to say that, and no doubt this is going to cause a bug in the future, and I'm not going to see the comment because that has also happened on occasion as well. I will only find the comment once I'm like knee deep in debugging the whole thing and maybe even finished debugging, but I will add it just to be sure. So how would we handle that? So we'd have to add handling for that inside multi-symbol token, and in fact we can't actually do it without 3 characters of look ahead. So maybe it would be worth implementing look ahead now. And of course, I mean, I really thought that the feature today was going to be very straightforward, that it would really just be using existing functionality, but I completely overlooked the fact that I haven't re-implemented yeah, triple symbol tokens. So this is actually implemented using characters next because of UTF-8, and that's actually a very good point, because I was thinking, oh, can I just do look ahead? In general, but UTF-8 actually does create a bit of a limitation here. But if we did have a look ahead, I do think the logic here would be simplified, because we would basically just say, do we match a single symbol token? If yes, then we keep going, we look ahead by 2. And if yeah, so we have the, in fact that's what we already do. We have the general case covered for when we are matching and the brief prefixes exist, but if we need look ahead, then we're not covered. And I'm thinking, oh, will I leave this for a moment? But I need to implement it at some stage anyway, so we'll keep going. I'll see, does the old version of this have the, oh, there were so few files before. Wow, the Lexer is so small, but then it doesn't handle as much. Ah, I handled that type of triple symbol token specifically. I probably did the same with dollar symbol. Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of kind of manual symbol matching here. And that makes sense too, but it might be nice to kind of solve it in the general case, because otherwise it's just going to keep coming back. So let me think. Here we're matching the case for a single symbol token. Here's double symbol token and triple symbol token. a symbol doesn't have a prefix in the single symbol token pool, but is a double symbol token, then we do match that with multi-symbol token by scanning the current character and the next character, and then if there is a match, then we handle that. So we have covered all of the cases, all the possible cases of double symbol tokens, i.e. those that do have a prefix matching a single symbol token and ones that don't have a prefix matching that. So now what we need to handle is, so we have the case of triple symbol tokens that have a prefix matching a single symbol token and a double symbol token. What we don't have is so we have ones that match a single and a double symbol prefix. We don't have ones that start with a single but don't match a double symbol. And we don't yet have a one that doesn't match either. But that will be handled in so here we have matches single and double. We have double and not single. So in here is where we will match single and not double. And in here is where we'll match not single and not double. What a mess. But it's, yeah, short of doing a proper prefix tree based solution, which would probably, I think it would make more sense, but would probably be a lot more effort. I mean, if we wanted to solve this in the general case, this is what we would need, but at the same time, we're probably not going to need to be able to handle the case of more than 3 symbol tokens, or more than 3 symbols in a token. Should I just keep matching? So if it's, should I just do it like an alphanumeric string where if we match a symbol, we keep matching symbols? No, because some symbols stop early and some don't. Because if we have a colon equals, that's its own symbol, but then if we have a parentheses, we just want to match that on its own. So no, this probably, yeah, short of doing a proper prefix tree based approach, which needs to have awareness of the look ahead logic as well, this is the next best thing. So yeah, like I said, bit of a mess, but it's probably the best thing that we have at the moment. Yeah, and it makes sense that if we don't match anything here, then we also return none because we haven't matched any tokens by this point because we don't have a prefix. We don't have a single token, single symbol token or a double symbol token at this point. However, in this case, we do. So we're going to add in the matching of triple symbol token So here we handle the matching of triple symbol tokens that do have a prefix matching a single symbol token, but not don't have a prefix matching a double symbol token. Whew. And I don't need this anymore. So let's see, 332, what's the issue here? I think it's just some syntax. And then we're good again. Uh-oh. I don't like that. Oh, we didn't match a parentheses. I mean, at least we have some little tests in here as well that can parse like parentheses. So let's see, test lexes. And this is that could be problematic. Oh, I need the look ahead, realistically. Yeah, so the problem here is that I have matched a I have matched a single symbol token, but if we try and push the scanner forward without having matched anything else, then that's going to be a problem. So yeah, that can only really be fixed by solving it in a by handling look ahead. And now that I think of it, it could have the same issue over here. Yeah, it will. I'm fairly certain. So if we have something like well, it'll be difficult to trigger because we'd need a token that we'd need a double symbol token that doesn't have a single symbol prefix, but which, yeah, so a single symbol token which doesn't have a single symbol prefix. So let's take a look at our options. In fact, I'll keep a mark here. So I think that's one actually. So pipe. I don't think we allow pipe on its own. So let's try that. So let's try a couple things. So we'll match null. And we'll match, let's see. Oh, we already have a match for statement end. Anything else interesting? We'll go interpolated string literal. That'll be hello as well. Although it would be more interesting if we actually had some interpolated slots in it, so I'll leave that out for the moment. We have an integer literal, we have an identifier. Anything else interesting? That's kind of it. Maybe we'll do just equals to have one of the triple equals symbols being represented. And we just put function here just to, or maybe a long, no, that's probably fine. So we have null, we have pipe, we have equals, and we have function. And now if my hunch is correct, then the pipe will give us an error in terms of the range that it's specifying. It didn't. That's interesting. So we're matching double symbol tokens that don't have a prefix. Maybe it's because it's really only one symbol of look ahead. So it's not an issue. Yeah, I think it's just to do with the one symbol of look ahead, so it's able to kind of eke by with that amount of look ahead, so it's actually fine there. I'm not going to dig too much deeper into it because I think I've already spent more time than I wanted to on this bit, but this at least needs to be commented, and at least it's fine then. So we don't handle the matching of triple symbol tokens that do not have a prefix, that do have a prefix but don't have it. So because if we attempt to match a token after the double, after attempting failing to match a double symbol token. Oh yeah, so that's the reason why it fails, because even if we fail to match the initial single symbol token, once we've matched the first two symbols, we can push the look ahead, or we've consumed the first two tokens and our first two characters, and then we can actually look ahead for one more character, so it actually works out fine. Cool, finally. That is now working, and now we can add some tests. So one other test I'll add first is function equality. So but we're allowed to do equality if we do reference equality. And so we'll do the same for objects. And so now that will also be a way of kind of generating unique symbols, so to speak, that you can check the equality of and make sure that, you know, two references are actually, or a reference is the reference that you think it is. Yeah, and so the only thing that should be failing here is function equality. No, all of my tests are failing, so let's see. What's the issue here? So we have 3, can't apply, oh yeah, equals to func and func. And that's valid, and the issue here is that I'm using, well, those should still all pass. What's the issue here? Well, function reference equality is failing because, yeah, it's using equality, but for list equality we're getting true. Oh yeah, that makes sense, because all of them are structurally equal. But if we change them to reference equality, then the third of each, oh, and that will fail because that's comparing a function to an object. So let's so we'll bump the cargo version, and we will add some docs. Features. And just thinking about it now as well, the being able to check for a reference equality is handy for example, having a sentinel value. So if I have an object and I want to say that, there's special behavior in a particular value when I'm doing tree walking, for example, and I want to denote that using a special value, if I just had a string, then a string might be a valid value at that position, but if I use a sentinel value that I've created and I know will be unique within the tree, then it's essentially a good way of creating and denoting out of band values. So for example, I suppose that is one good example. Denoting another example might be if I wanted to, for whatever reason, create my own like dictionary type, then if I wanted to define my own undefined value, I could create an object, and in the next language I'm developing I can make it immutable, but in the current language we can at least get the same functionality by creating an undefined thanks for the follow, welcome to the channel. What was my train of thought? So we can define our undefined value and then return that, and we can check it and distinguish between that value and using reference equality and the value that actually gets returned, because any value that gets returned from the object, unless we decide to again go against good conventional coding, we shouldn't be putting the undefined value itself within the dictionary, but as long as we follow that rule, we can use that sentinel value to make sure that what we're returning is, we can check for its existence using this sentinel value. The current compiler stages. So at the moment it's a dynamic language in the sense that the values or the types of values aren't fixed, so you can, for example, swap what value is in a variable and it can swap the type, but it's strongly typed in terms that all of the operations, basically no operations are overloaded. So if you try to compare, for example, a string and an integer, you'll get a runtime exception. And similarly, almost all the operations will require you to be operating like with like. And in fact, I'm just implementing reference equality now, which again, even for equality, for reference equality as well, you can only compare an object to an object to see are the references equal. Everything used to be boxed actually, or at the very least it used to all be behind arcmutexes, but in a relatively recent refactoring to kind of simplify things, I've actually updated it so that the basically only reference values like lists objects and functions are behind arcmutexes, and all the primitive types are just the values themselves. And in terms of the current compiler stages, it's really just the evaluator. That's the only layer. There's no extra optimization. There's no bytecode compiler or anything like that. But that's fairly, I guess, a lot of that is on purpose, largely because so for this language, it's mainly, the language that I'm working on now, I was mentioning at the start of the stream, this is possibly going to be the last stream I have on this particular language, because it's basically as complete as I want it to be. But this language is mainly used to be, or mainly intended to be used as a test bed for different language features and potentially building other languages off of it. And so readability, maintainability, comprehensive testing, all those are kind of the main concerns. Whereas performance and the likes of, being very low level or anything like that aren't goals. So for those reasons, there isn't much optimization, there's no bytecode, all that kind of stuff. Because the aim is to be able to play around and just try things out from a syntax and semantic perspective. And it's also, this one isn't intended to be, shall we say, production targeting, whereas the language that I will be building on top of this will be more, developed with the goal of being production ready, but performance in that case still won't actually be a big concern because it's aiming to fill the, same space or the same niche as Bash and scripting in general. And in those cases, it's intended to be, again, kind of the glue that goes between different programs. So the performance of the program itself is, I would say, less important than being able to just kind of orchestrate things. So it doesn't really matter, in my head anyway, how performant the glue is, because once it sets up the programs and, for example, the pipes and things like that, the main bottlenecks in that kind of a pipeline are going to be the programs and processes themselves rather than the glue code. But we'll see how the language evolves as well. But those are kind of some of the, not constraints, but some of the different decisions that have been made so far, and some of the different, properties of the language so far. But more information on that can be checked out at the README on the GitHub page as well, where you'll find, say, some of the goals, non-goals, and a very rough and ready introduction to the language in general. But hope you find it interesting. Thanks very much for checking out the stream and for your questions. So getting back to this language feature of reference equality, where am I going to put the feature code for this? Let's see. So I guess it'll maybe come into, hope that was all right. So I guess it'll go under operations perhaps, and we have assignments there. I guess I'll see where it comes in under the features document as well. So we have operations on integers. Okay, and we have equality there. We don't have a section corresponding to that in the features file, I don't think. No. So I guess I'll just put it wherever. Or I suppose I'll put a Oh, that's interesting. And do you use Rust for it? Because I was actually, even when I was writing these out, so I've a custom test runner, but I was looking for if someone had already, um, yeah, published some kind of package to do it for me. And I didn't really find any that kind of matched exactly what I was looking for. Not that I was too specific either, but I thought it would be just handy to be able to lay out tests this way. And so if you happen to have it open source, or if you know of a package that can give these kind of results, I'd be very interested. So this was true, true, and false. Oh, it keeps changing my keyboard layout. Well, I keep changing my keyboard layout, but without intending to. Well, that's interesting. That was one thing that I thought would be difficult, is the fact that the LSP wouldn't be able to handle the formatting. I thought it would require some special setup. So that's cool if you're able to use the LSP even with that kind of a formatted file. But yeah, that was the big thing for me. I didn't want to have because I think there's 300 file or 300 tests, so I didn't want 300 test files. And yeah, it's a good point. I would say when I was doing the language this time around, I would say I don't have too many tests. I have the minimum number of tests, I think, to even just kind of test the basic functionality of, say, an operation or a feature. But one thing that was nice is, there were a lot of times where I did run into dead ends or made mistakes and things like that, and there were some severe bugs at different points. But then each time that I caught some of those bugs, I would then add tests to test for those specific bugs as well. So at least it was testing for regression as well. And I also have this features file where it just, I think I was inspired by, was it Odin language, where it has, I think, just an Odin features file. Where was it? Maybe examples, all that main. No, can't remember where I saw it before, but it was basically just one massive file with all the language features, which I thought was a really cool idea, and so I copied it. Now the features file that I have is slightly smaller than the one for Odin, and just because I kind of kept it very bare bones in comparison. But yeah, I mean, it helps to have all the example code being tested as well. Well, they can be redundant, but to be honest, it's also a case of I would say maybe there are some of my tests that are kind of redundant, but I think every test in general is testing like a different code branch. So even if it seems redundant, sometimes it's still exercising different parts of the language, or even, I mean, even combinations. Like if you have, for example, a test that executes A plus B plus C, it can be useful to have a test that tests that as well, because even though they're meant to be equivalent, and you know, it is kind of redundant in a way to test the two things, it does exercise different parts of the language. Now again, those kind of things can have a combinatorial explosion in complexity because there's so many things you can test, but I think there's necessarily going to be a certain level of redundancy in particularly tests for programming languages, which are, you know, combinatorial in their complexity anyway. Yeah, exactly. Oh, 100%. I think it's so important to do. I mean, yeah, I'm the same. Like, I have, where is it now? You know, a runtime errors file. Yeah, there's like 500 lines in that now, where the other errors tests, you know, parse errors, there aren't so many of those. I have some lexing errors tests. I think, yeah, having a comprehensive set of error tests is essential these days. But I think people are kind of appreciating that more as well, and dedicating proper time to not just testing the happy path always, but actually properly testing the error conditions and making sure that errors are useful, you know. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it took me a while to actually, I mean, even for me, for the longest time, I didn't even have proper, shall we say, line numbers on my error tests, which also made things very difficult to debug afterwards, because I was like guessing sometimes when I had a slightly bigger test, I was like guessing, okay, where exactly is the error coming from? So that's something that I have appreciated a lot once I got it working. And so I think that is the documentation and features file done. And so the version got bumped. That's the documentation. I might move some of the, oh no, I have it moved there, I think. Yeah, and I cleaned up the comments. Yeah, that's all alright. Will I move those? I think I might in parser though. That's going to take a long time to recompile, but I think I'm going to move it. Yeah, I think I'll move those down there. Yes, in general, I will exit on first error both for evaluation and for lexing and parsing. Now, that is going to factor into the next language that I'm working on, where I guess necessarily the runtime errors will then be catchable, and you know, will it'll be possible to progress beyond certain runtime errors. Oh, there was a space there, I think, that I didn't intend. What file is that in? Oh, equals equals equals. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Oh, did I include something there that I didn't want to? I did. So I will unstage tests and I'll stage that again. But yeah, so I exit on first error, and the error code at the moment will kind of distinguish between whether it was a parse error, a lex error, or a runtime error as well. So I think basically all the runtime errors are the 103s. Let's see, runtime errors. Yeah, they're all 103s, and then parse error is also 103. Okay, I wonder, do I have anything else? No. Okay, I guess just all errors are 103. Let me check main, see if I'm... Okay, so this is run 101. If I couldn't actually get the name of the program, which I'm not sure how possible that is, then if the arguments were wrong, it's a 102. And at the moment, just everything else is 103. So maybe I will distinguish between different errors. In fact, maybe that's something I could do now, where if I couldn't get the current directory, it's 103, couldn't read the script, 104, parse failure, 105, and then evaluation failure, error 106. But yeah, for the moment, I just have them all bunched together. I thought I was doing something different with them, but apparently not. So that is support for reference equality. And that's pretty nice. So then that's that done. So I have one more. Well, I have the nested error handling to sort out. Then in runtime arguments, or runtime errors, duplicate arg names. Yeah, and I remember this now. So it's saying on line 1, character 9, so that's this AA. A is already defined in the current scope. And then it's saying that was caused by this call, but really that is independent of the call. And maybe when the function is getting defined, it should be recognized. Yeah, I think that would be possible to detect at the point of definition. So let's see. So we have, yeah, I guess this will be in mod and fn maybe, func. It's not evaluating the call, it's actually declaring a function. So it would be when defining a function both as a statement and as an anonymous function. So yeah, basically what I'd be able to do is just go through the args and check is the are any of the arguments duplicated? And it should be as simple as that. Yeah, I think I'll do it that way. It would be a nice, I think, quality of life improvement. It would mean that the error gets caught earlier rather than waiting for it to be a runtime error. Oh no, please don't apologize. I appreciate the questions and the interaction, so thank you. Yeah, exactly. I try to make tests super small if I can. If possible, I will just be testing one feature. I mean, especially when it comes to runtime errors. I mean, there are possibly some of these where, yeah, it's literally just one word, and it's like, this is trying to evaluate that word, and it's checking that, okay, if I try to evaluate something that isn't defined, I get this specific error. And the reason for doing it that way is that it just narrows down the part of the code that I have to investigate if something goes wrong. But then what I do is, I guess there are two things. If I encounter bugs that are in specific parts of code, then again, I'll try and create a minimum working example that will recreate that bug. It's still going to be as small as possible, but it'll probably be a little more involved than the very small compared to the very small ones, just because that's what I need to reproduce the error. And then there are other ones. For example, I have these combinations files. So here are some combinations error or combinations of operations. So this was to test, again, a specific issue that had been occurring where objects, because of the way I had implemented objects, the nested references were getting copied instead of getting, so it would clone the entire object rather than creating a new reference to the original object. And so these kind of combinations tests that are made up of a few different things. So here would be another one, mutating parameters in lots of different ways. Those are made up of like multiple language features, but again are minimum working examples so that I can narrow it. When a bug does come up, I can narrow down the scope of my focus. Yeah, exactly. Well, there is always a penalty in the sense of it is going to increase the amount of time that the tests take, and it's necessarily going to create more code. But the alternative is creating big tests, and they're still going to take longer to run in their own way, and I guess the benefit is because all of this stuff is running in memory. You're not, at least with these sets, you're not accessing a database at the moment. I'm not doing any operations over the internet, so the tests still run super fast. So yeah, I don't think there's much less of a downside than there typically is to having lots of tests in a setup like this in particular. I could assert, so that's actually an interesting point, and the specific reason that I did it this way is because, well, I guess I could have done it with the asserts. The code is actually running full processes though, so it captures the standard error and the standard out, and so I can actually, for example, test the exit code as if, so this isn't just kind of calling the evaluation function on this code. This is actually spinning up an entirely new instance of the interpreter, running it end to end, making sure that it exits with the right code and that the standard output was as it would be if I were to run this on a separate test file, because that's what it's actually doing. I kind of prefer that approach just because it does actually run the test end to end, and it's behaving as it would if the end user is using it that way. It probably, yeah, like you say, it could be more self-contained if it used asserts, and if it maybe if it called, the evaluation function inline. Yeah, this is just the approach I take, just to kind of get closer to the end use case. Yeah, like it's, there, I would say there are lots of ways of doing it. I, you know, as with all these things, it's different trade-offs. These are kind of the the combination of benefits that I saw with this approach, but you know, there are lots of different approaches that would be equally feasible in their own way as well. But having said that, so there is, yeah, so this is the change regarding, oh no, it was eval. So, or we'll take a look at AST and see how functions are defined. Built-in functions we won't handle this way because it's not necessary. Oops. So instead, yeah, so functions are defined as a vector of expression. So what we're really going to do is do a recursive look to see what are the variable names. Each of these expressions should eventually, I guess, at their leaves become just variables. So all I really need to do is just check all the variable names, and none of them should be duplicated except for underscores. So let's see, what would be a good name for a function like this? So let's see, args, and I think I can take a leaf out of, so it's essentially going to be a depth first search, which will return an error if there's a problem or so maybe I'll actually make that option instead. Although it could be useful to actually it could be useful to return the error itself, because then we can add the line and column information. So instead of this, we will go back to assert no duplicate name, and we'll just add context, eval, or no, it's declare function duplicate name. And so expression here. And we'll have let's see, a hash set, which is a set of names that have been discovered so far. And that's going to want to return a hash set as well. I'll let this develop as it goes on. Let me think. So if we have a variable, we can have an object. So these are the things that are allowed on the left hand side of an assignment. So the same stuff would be allowed. No, it's different. It's the stuff that's allowed. Okay, it's a subset of the stuff that's usually allowed on the left hand side of an assignment. So that is going to be variables, indexes, range indexes, and props aren't allowed, but objects and lists are. I'll probably change the name, being like validate, what's called args. Even though, no, I won't get into it now. I don't usually like naming things validate and having them return nothing. I like to validate things to construct them, and then you have that as an assertion on the constructed value. But this is fine. Oops. And I'll comment those out for the moment. I'll just focus on these. So if name is not equal to underscore, then found names insert name. And so we'll have name, line, and column. And so we might do a thing like this, where we actually keep track of the names that we find. And so this whole block will need to be done for each expression as well. Tree-based intermediate representations, is it? Yeah, I guess, to be honest, I haven't worked with them myself. I usually, to be honest, I've only ever really done kind of recursive descent parsers, just because they're the thing that makes most sense to me, and it's one of those things where I think it's easy to get very deep down the rabbit hole of all the possible ways you can do that, you can make a language and build an interpreter and things. And these days I just want to get stuck into the interesting parts. Oh, okay, I get you. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, it is a trade-off. Rust is very nice in terms of the guarantees it can give you, but I'm not going to say that it wasn't without its fair share of issues when I was implementing the language. Now again, I say the issues were with Rust, but really it was with me, and it was good that Rust brought issues that I was making in the language to my attention, because then I could actually address them. But it was still difficult, and there were a lot of times where it took maybe a lot longer than I had hoped to get things working because of that. Now I do think the end result is hopefully a lot nicer now because of that, but it is, there are pros and cons, definitely. Syntax for creating structs and enums. I guess so. Well, it depends. I guess lifetimes and things can really make things verbose. You can do dot variant. Oh, okay, yeah. So instantiation, things like that. Oh, that's what you were saying, to instantiate a couple of statements and expressions. Yeah, it's a good point, and yet it again is a trade-off, because even Rust so far, I feel, does kind of suffer from nearly having too many language features. And if there was even more syntactic sugar for different operations, I feel like it could suffer as a result. So it's it's sometimes a trade-off between uniform boilerplate or more abstract stuff, but then you know, abstraction can have its own costs as well. So, and syntactic sugar, which I found out the hard way as well. So it's yeah, it's a tricky one. So in this case we have location. Oh, I can just put in look here. So if we have an object and then we have props, so we can go through the props recursively. I think. Or we might not even need to do it recursively, we might be able to just, yeah, keep a queue and go through the elements of the queue one by one. Maybe we'll do that. How easy is that to do in Rust? I'm not sure, but I also kind of wanted to, whoops, what have I done here? I wanted to update the version of Rust that I'm using as well. Let's see. Well, first I think I need to plug in my charger. Let's try this. There we go. And then, oh, I get you. Yeah. Like, I like the idea of Rust Funct, but it just doesn't happen to share my criteria. So it's like, okay, I guess I just have to do it by hand. Whereas I really like the Go formatter and how it's, I feel a lot less obtrusive as the Rust one, and that's really nice. But it's, yeah, it's tricky because you can't please everyone with the rules. But yeah, the Go approach does seem to be the kind of gold standard in that regard. Yeah, that kind of stuff is like when it's making decisions about, like, it nearly kind of comes down to line length as well. Like, it'll make decisions based on line length, and I used to be of the opinion that was good, but these days I'm like, yeah, it's there's definitely for and against for making rules based on line length and based on wrapping. And I do like the Go approach that just kind of stays out of your way for that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'll actually be intending to, well, I am intending to write a formatter for the language that I'm writing it at some point. And yeah, it'll be interesting to be put in front of all those decisions as well and be like, oh, which approach will I take? Yeah, I think so too. These days, like, there are some nice things you can do, I think, if you're aware of line length, but no, it's easy to take it too far, I think. So I would like to get this finished, but based on how much time I've spent on this today, I don't think I'll quite get these features done. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I will stash them and just give a quick check to see, can I update the Rust version. And And so what I want to do is bump to the same version of Rust as I have in this other project that I use. I'll do this as well, the pipe fail stuff, because that has caught me out in the past. Let's see, can just be updated to a different version. Polymorphism, no, but I also don't have strong type. I mean, polymorphism is kind of available in the fact that, for example, this language is dynamically typed, so you can just throw what you want into your objects. But yeah, to be honest, I haven't implemented a proper type checker ever, so it's yeah, I can imagine it's difficult to figure out, especially I guess a lot of the literature, like is it Simple Type System or Hindley Milner and things like that. There's a lot of kind of maths in it as well, so I would say kind of reverse engineering that kind of stuff can be tricky too. So I'm looking at version 1.38. And do I have any other? I don't have Docker in this project, so a bit annoying that I'm using Python just to have the comment checker, but it's fine. So let's see, doc run in build environment, and I'll just say true. Oh, let's try that. What version of doc is that? I feel like it should be the latest. Yeah. Yeah, well that can make it very difficult to actually figure out how to implement the maths of it all. It can be quite abstract. Now I'm just thinking, are any of my other projects using Rust 1.60? And I hope not, so that I can just delete that version from my environment. Everything seems to be getting set up well so far. I think it just needs to install just, and that's it. So oops. Oh yeah, I know what I did wrong. But now I need to, let's see, projects, outline, can I, yeah, we'll do it like that. No edition set. I thought I had edition set in the cargo. No, but I do in this project, so I think it's 2021 that I was using. Well, it must have been a very old edition if I oh no, that's not my project. Yeah, I just put it at Yeah, I think in general removing code feels very good. Less code, the better. And yeah, this will be interesting now, revamping the code based on all the updates, although there don't seem to be too many changes that Clippy is suggesting. I should possibly remove target. And then, what was the command I had been using? Let me just check. Okay, that's to get everything again. Wow, that cleared a lot of disk space. Did it automatically? Oh, because I'm using doc, did it automatically remove? Oh no, I still have 1.60, so that'll also get removed at some point. Desugar the for loops into intermediate. Oh, that's a lot of changes. Oh no, it's to do with generated code. I guess because I'm using a very old version of Ladderpop. Let's see what version of Ladderpop we're on now. Releases 0.220. Yeah, I'll see, will I update that? Oh no, there's some errors. Oh, because it updated how imports are written. Okay. Guess if I do that, hopefully that will help. Four kinds of loops using the same for keyword. Yeah, that makes sense. I think Go does something similar as well. It has, in fact, it has lots of. I guess the for loop is very overloaded at this point. It can loop over ranges. It can do the traditional for I less than 10 I increment. It can do iterators now. Oh yeah, infinite as well, omitting the condition. And pattern based. That sounds very cool. So is that kind of like an if statement almost? Like an abstracted if statement? Use of unstable library feature deref patterns. That's very interesting. Oops, what happened there? Let's see. For let, okay. Like while let. Oh, I see. So it's, yeah. It's kind of, I guess, thing needs to have side effects, does it? because otherwise, yeah, I guess without side effects, it's yeah, or without being an iterator, perhaps, it would only be able to iterate over one value. Unknown built in. Don't like that. Let's see. I think there's more complaining being done. Let's see if I change Lallerpop to 22. Will that give me issues? Oh yeah, makes sense. That would be mostly useful for the case of iterators. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think I have any explicit iterators in this language either at the moment. Okay, so that seemed to deal with a lot of the warnings that had been there, especially with regards to Lallerpop. So let's see what else can be done. And we're getting kind of over time in terms of the duration of this stream, but let's see if we can finish off the version bump at the very least. Source of val built-ins. Oh yeah, how was that not spotted before? Source of val mod. And same with that. 29. No, 20. Yeah, I said this before on stream. I still don't get Rust's module system. I mean, it makes me very embarrassed to say it, but I just don't. But I'm also not kind of embarrassed enough to actually spend some time to go learn it, which is, maybe its own problem, but hex calls. I mean, that's the thing. You don't always need syntactic sugar for, especially for the likes of iterators. I mean, the concept is kind of nice how it's a fairly simple concept in and of itself. You don't always need, like, even just implementing it, kind of using almost first principles gives pretty, I guess, useful results, I think. Lots of mentions of these deref patterns, which I'm not loving. And then it's saying no external crate deref. Tense functions. Maybe I don't need to import that anymore. I think I was reading something about that before. Eval bind. That's new. Was that just being suppressed by one of the other errors? No. Seems to be here for good now. Okay, let's stick with this for the moment. So, use of unstable library feature deref patterns. I wonder, is that just a case of accidentally using the name of a macro? That now exists, that didn't exist before. So if I just rename all of them to deref2. And if I really need to, I'll just redefine it in every file like I did before, because before I also didn't get how to import stuff in general. Using a prelude, okay. So maybe if yeah, exactly. I think so. Now, maybe if I do cargo clean and then I try and rebuild, it will maybe get rid of the partial definition stuff. I am pretty pleased with how quickly the, I guess, project rebuilds from a clean. I mean, I feel like before it would take quite a long time. Now, I don't I don't like the fact that my project isn't building anymore, but I might be able to salvage this just by redefining deref2 in places where it's needed. So where was that? Oh yeah, here. Okay, let's try that. Okay. Still has an issue. Okay, let's try just different versions of Lollipop because I think, what was it on before? I guess I can check Git. So I was on 19.5. Maybe I should do this just to see. Wonder if I actually go back to 19.5. Will it work again? It'd be a shame if I just straight up couldn't upgrade Rust because of Lollipop. And in fact, we'll do a cargo clean first. But yeah, if this doesn't work, then I think I will just leave it there for today. I mean, I'll have done a lot. I won't have done everything that I'd set out to do necessarily, but I did get a nice bit done. Okay, it might actually be building now. Nice, okay, it's actually building. And that's just a matter of doing that. Okay, so there are lots of issues that should be possible to ignore. I think I've done something like that before. And so it's when I use the parser that gets generated. Oh yeah, allow dead code. And so these are unused import. Allow Clippy all should surely allow all of those things. Anyway, source of val mod 57. Those will be used later by imports, and same with standard. Those are probably going to be errors instead of warnings. So I'll just do Clippy allow, and 8 errors only, so that's good. Because I was updating another project of mine and there were a lot more than 8. So there was like probably over 100. Now most of them were just updating format arguments, but still took more time than expected. A let else. If let. Oh, I don't like that. I mean, not saying that my way is that much better, but in fact, I think, do I explicitly allow that in my other project? Yeah, manual let else. I don't like that Clippy rule. So let's go ahead, just file that. And that's a let else. Oh, all of these are just in the build.rs file. I suppose I do have pedantic enabled, but still. I mean, I'm kind of suspicious. I feel like once I clean these up, that I'm going to have a lot of other errors. Yep. Oh well. Let's see. What is the damage? So 64 errors and then 77 errors. Lots of format errors, as was the case before as well. So will I just try and power through? I mean, I would like to, if I could finish this out by just getting the update concluded, then I would be happy to finish it there. So let's see if I can get it done. not sure what to do about the import. Yeah, single match else. I don't think I like that either. Yeah, like, I get it, but I personally just think it looks weird. So maybe we'll disable that too. I mean, not saying that my version looks that much better, but still. Yeah, it's a lot of information on fewer lines. So that is oh, right, that's good. That's easy to fix. I just want to add some description. Let's just try that. Oops, no, not that. Where are we? Copy that. Oh, yeah. You can just add a comment. Yeah, I guess I can do that. So let's see. Allow dead code. And that is where eval built-ins. so I've deref2 all over the place. Oops. Global bindings might not be necessary. Oh, what is this about? Yeah, that might not be necessary because it's passed into a valprog. Cool, source main. Yeah, 39 errors. We're getting through them. want to get rid of these. Oh, is it because that's not coming from Clippy, it's coming from Rust itself? Oh, finally. Thank goodness. That was driving me a bit loopy. Hang on a sec. Okay, so where are those going? That's Clippy stuff, right? Yeah, that's Clippy. Why am I being told about Clippy stuff now? It's happening in tests. I'm sorry, ChatGPT, my descriptions are getting very, very poor. It's been a lot of coding today. Those aren't really. Oh, it's from the. It's from my code, generated from my tests. Oh yeah, so that's being generated. And where is that getting imported from then? So maybe I can change that. Ooh, let's try that now. Oh no. Why? Maybe I can just. Yeah, okay, I guess. Yeah, so we're back to ChatGPT's original suggestion. But now that I know where the code is actually getting generated, I can actually do it. Not quite. Can I just do that? Oh, only 1,000 errors. Let's try that. Why not? Okay, I think I'm just going to disable manual string here for a moment. Oh, this may need to be broken up into a separate stream. I am running out of steam. errors and 4 errors. Might we be in luck? Yeah, like those are more complicated ones to resolve at the moment anyway. Oh, well, probably not, but at this point in the stream, I don't have much left in me. Oh, let's go with this. And in fact, I'm going to put those back because I like the symmetry. Okay, and it's just down to the casting errors, and I think I'm gonna have to leave those for the next day. But I think it was a fairly productive stream in the end, all things considered. Got a lot done, and there's, I would say, most of the changes necessary for updating this project have almost been completed, so I don't think there's too much left to do. So yeah, I think that's as good a place to leave it as any. And so yeah, thanks as always to anyone checking this out, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks to everyone who comments in, messages in on the different videos, asks questions. It all means a lot. And so yeah, I will see you again. Take care.